I was celebrating my 35th birthday on my luxury yacht off the Southern California coast when everything I knew became a lie. The sunset painted the Pacific in shades of amber and rose. I turned to watch the horizon, and that's when I felt hands slam against my back. My sister Jenna's voice whispered in my ear, breath hot against my skin, "Say hello to the sharks, sister." Then I was falling, the railing disappearing beneath me, the cold shock of oceans swallowing me whole. When I surfaced, gasping and choking on salt water, I saw them, Derek, my husband of 8 years, standing beside Jenna at the railing. He was smiling, actually smiling. The yacht's engines roared to life, and they sped away into the dusk, leaving me alone in the darkening water. The cold hit me like 1,000 needles piercing my skin all at once. I treaded water, my birthday dress heavy and dragging me down. My heels had fallen off during the fall, thank God, or I would have sunk immediately. The yacht was already just a white speck on the horizon, moving fast, getting smaller with every second. My mind couldn't process what had just happened. Jenna pushed me. Derek smiled. They left me here. We were 20 miles from shore. I knew because Derek had insisted on coming out this far for the perfect sunset photos. No life vest, no flotation device. No one else knew we were out here because this was supposed to be an intimate family celebration. Just the three of us. Just the three of us. The realization crashed over me harder than the waves. This was planned. Every detail. The remote location. The timing at dusk when visibility would be poor. The private celebration with no witnesses. They had planned to murder me. But why? Then I remembered. 6 months ago, my father died. Heart attack, sudden and devastating. He left everything to me. His entire fortune from 3 decades building software companies in Silicon Valley. $2 billion. Jenna got a trust fund of $5 million, which she burned through in 2 years on a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She'd always lived in my shadow, always been the beautiful one while I was the smart one, always resented that Dad favored me in business. And Derek, my Derek, we'd been married for 8 years. He'd supported me through Dad's illness, through the grief after his death, through the overwhelming responsibility of managing such wealth. Or so I thought. The water was getting colder. The sun had set completely now, and darkness was closing in. I could feel hypothermia beginning to set in, my fingers and toes going numb. I had maybe 2 hours before I lost consciousness, maybe 3 if I was lucky. I spotted something floating about 30 feet away. A cushion from the yacht's deck. They must have knocked it overboard accidentally. I swam toward it with strokes that were already becoming sluggish. My arms felt like lead. When I reached it, I grabbed on, pulling it close to my chest. It wasn't much, but it would help me float, conserve energy. Hours passed, I don't know how many. Time became meaningless in the dark. I alternated between shivering violently and feeling eerily warm, which I knew was a bad sign. I hallucinated. Saw my father's face in the stars. Heard Jenna's childhood laughter in the sound of the waves. Felt Derek's arms around me. Back when I still believed he loved me. Just before dawn, when I'd accepted that I was going to die out here, I heard an engine, different from a yacht, deeper, rougher. I tried to shout, but my voice was a croak. I lifted one arm and waved weakly. A spotlight hit me, blindingly bright. "Holy hell, there's someone in the water," a man's voice shouted. The fishing vessel was called the Pacific Dawn, captained by a weathered man in his 60s named Roy Hutchins. He and his crew pulled me aboard with strong, efficient hands. I was shaking so hard I couldn't speak. Someone wrapped me in scratchy wool blankets that smelled like fish and diesel fuel. Someone else put a cup of hot coffee in my hands, but I couldn't hold it steady. "Call the Coast Guard," Captain Roy ordered. "Get her to harbor fast. She's got severe hypothermia." They radioed ahead. I tried to tell them what happened, but the words came out jumbled, incoherent. They thought I was delirious. Maybe I was. By the time we reached San Diego Harbor, I'd regained some clarity. Paramedics were waiting. They loaded me into an ambulance, started an IV, wrapped me in heated blankets. At the hospital, doctors treated me for hypothermia, dehydration, and minor injuries from the fall. I was alive. Against all odds, I was alive. That's when the Coast Guard arrived to question me. "Mrs. Patterson," the officer said, notepad in hand, "can you tell us what happened?" "My sister pushed me off the yacht," I said, my voice still hoarse. "She and my husband tried to kill me." The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "Mrs. Patterson, your husband and sister reported you missing 3 hours ago. They said you'd been drinking heavily and jumped overboard." My blood went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the ocean. "What?" "They searched for hours before calling us. They were distraught. Your husband provided video footage to our investigators showing you drinking heavily throughout the evening, behaving erratically." "That's not true." "I mean, I had champagne, it was my birthday, but I wasn't drunk." "They pushed me. They left me there to die." The officers looked at each other again. That look, the one that said they didn't believe me. A nurse came in then, followed by a doctor I hadn't seen before. The doctor introduced himself as Dr. Philip Brennan, psychiatrist. "Mrs. Patterson, your husband mentioned you've been struggling since your father's death," Dr. Brennan said gently. "Depression, paranoid thoughts. He's very worried about you." "I'm not paranoid. They tried to kill me." "That's a very serious accusation," the Coast Guard officer said. "We've reviewed the footage from your yacht security cameras. It shows you climbing onto the railing yourself. Your husband and sister appear to be trying to pull you back." The room tilted. "That's impossible. That's not what happened." But even as I said it, I understood. The footage had been edited, or staged somehow. They'd thought of everything, every single detail. "We're going to keep you under observation," Dr. Brennan said. "Mandatory psychiatric hold, 72 hours. It's for your own safety." No, you don't understand. They're trying to steal my money. They're going to use this to say I'm incompetent." But my protests only made me sound more unhinged. The more I insisted, the crazier I appeared. Derek arrived an hour later. I heard him before I saw him. His voice in the hallway, thick with manufactured emotion. "Thank God she's alive. I thought I'd lost her." When he walked into my room, his eyes were red. From crying, supposedly. But I saw the truth beneath the performance. The cold calculation. The victory. "Claire," he said, rushing to my bedside. "Baby, I was so scared." "Don't touch me," I hissed. He pulled back, hurt flickering across his face. Hurt for the doctors and nurses watching. "See," he said to Dr. Brennan. "This is what I was telling you about. The paranoia. The hostility." "Where's Jenna?" I demanded. "She's at the house, securing everything." "She's devastated, Claire. She loves you so much. She can't understand why you'd do this." I wanted to scream, to claw his eyes out, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I want to see my lawyer." "Of course," Derek said soothingly. "I already called Martin. He'll be here tomorrow." Martin Greenberg had been my attorney for 5 years. He'd handled my father's estate. But as Derek said his name, I realized with growing horror that Martin had also prepared our prenuptial agreement, had set up the power of attorney I'd signed years ago, trusting Derek completely. They'd thought of everything. I was trapped in a hospital room with a psychiatric hold. My husband, who'd tried to murder me, was walking free. My sister, who'd pushed me into the ocean, was in my house. And everyone believed I was the crazy one. The psychiatric ward of San Diego Memorial Hospital became my prison for the next 3 days. The rooms were painted in supposedly calming shades of pale blue and cream, but nothing about being locked in a mental health unit was calming. I had a roommate for the first day, a woman in her 50s who rocked back and forth and muttered about satellites. After she was moved to a different unit, I was alone. I tried to explain the truth to every doctor, every nurse, every orderly who would listen, but each protest was noted in my chart as further evidence of delusional thinking and paranoia. Dr. Brennan visited twice daily, asking gentle questions designed to assess my mental state. I learned quickly that the truth made me sound insane, so I started saying what they wanted to hear. "I understand I was confused," I told Dr. Brennan on day 2. "The stress of losing my father, maybe I did drink too much." He smiled, pleased. "That's good progress, Claire." Acknowledging what happened is the first step. But at night, alone in that room, I planned. I needed to understand the full extent of what Derek and Jenna had done. I needed to find proof. I needed to survive this long enough to fight back. Derek visited every day, playing the devoted husband with Oscar-worthy skill. He brought flowers. He held my hand while I silently recoiled from his touch. He spoke to the doctors in hushed, concerned tones just outside my door, where I could hear every word. "She's been seeing a therapist," he told Dr. Brennan on day 2. "Dr. Sarah Mendez. Claire didn't want me to know, but I found the appointment cards. She's been talking about feeling worthless since her father died. I'd never seen a therapist. But when Dr. Brennan mentioned it to me later, asking why I hadn't disclosed this, I realized Derek had created an entire false medical history for me." On day 3, Martin Greenberg finally visited. He was 62, gray-haired, distinguished, and he looked at me with pity. "Claire, Derek filled me in on everything," Martin said, sitting across from me in the visiting room. "I have to say, I'm very concerned. Martin, listen to me. Derek and Jenna tried to kill me. They pushed me off the yacht. They're after my money." Martin's expression grew more troubled. "Claire, I've known Derek for 8 years. He's devoted to you, and Jenna is your sister. These accusations are very serious, and, frankly, they're part of the pattern Derek described." "What pattern?" "The paranoia. The belief that people are plotting against you." Martin pulled papers from his briefcase. "Derek has filed for temporary conservatorship. Given your mental state, I have to advise you that fighting this might not be in your best interest." The room seemed to shrink. "Conservatorship? He wants to control my money? He wants to protect you from making decisions while you're not well. Claire, you have $2 billion. If you're not competent to manage it, someone needs to." "I'm competent." "Martin, fire him. I want a different attorney." Martin shook his head sadly. "Claire, Derek holds power of attorney. He signed the authorization for my representation. Unless a court determines you're mentally fit to make legal decisions, I'm afraid that authority stands." I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. "When is the hearing?" 1 week. Judge Margaret Hartwell presiding. Martin stood. "I'll advocate for your interests, Claire, but you need to understand how this looks. The suicide attempt, the accusations against your family, the courts take these matters very seriously." After he left, I sat in that visiting room for an hour, just staring at the wall. They'd built a perfect trap. Every move I made to escape only tightened the noose. A nurse I hadn't seen before came in as I was being escorted back to my room. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes. "Mrs. Patterson," she whispered, glancing around. "I believe you." I stopped walking. "What?" "My shift ends in an hour. I can't help much, but I can get you a phone for 10 minutes. There's a supply closet on the 3rd floor that doesn't have cameras." "Why would you help me?" "Because I've seen women like you before. Rich, successful, then suddenly they're crazy, and their husbands control everything. It's a pattern." She pressed a key into my palm. "3rd floor, room 304, 1 hour, delete everything after." True to her word, an hour later I snuck to the 3rd floor during a shift change. The supply closet was small and smelled like disinfectant. The phone she'd left was an old Android, barely charged. I had maybe 20 minutes of battery life. I started searching. First, news about me. I found articles from 2 days ago. Tech heiress rescued after suicide attempt. Derek and Jenna had held a press conference. There was video. Derek stood at a podium, Jenna beside him, both looking devastated. "My wife has been struggling," Derek said, voice breaking. "We tried to get her help, but she refused. We should have tried harder. This is our failure as much as hers. We just want Claire to get well." The comments were full of sympathy. For them, people called me selfish, said I was ungrateful. One person wrote, "These poor people tried to save her, and she's probably going to blame them." I kept searching, my hands shaking. Then I found something that made my heart stop. It was an old video uploaded to a wedding blog years ago. Footage from my wedding to Derek. The professional videographer had posted raw, unedited footage online as part of their portfolio. I'd never looked at it before. I skipped through hours of footage until I found what I was looking for. In the background of a shot focused on my father giving a toast, you could see Derek and Jenna. They were standing off to the side, away from the crowd. Derek's hand was on Jenna's lower back, intimate, possessive. She leaned into him, whispered something. He kissed her hair. At my wedding. They were together at my wedding. I kept watching, feeling sick. There were more moments. During the ceremony, Derek looking past me at Jenna. During the reception, their hands touching as they passed each other. During the first dance, Jenna watching with an expression that wasn't sisterly love. They'd been having an affair from the beginning, maybe before. Derek had never loved me. He'd married me for the money he knew I'd inherit someday, and Jenna had helped him do it. This was a long con, years in the making. Waiting for my father to die, waiting for the perfect moment to take everything. The phone died before I could download the video. I had no proof, but now I knew the truth. I was released from psychiatric hold after 72 hours. Derek picked me up in my own car, a Mercedes SUV I'd bought myself. He drove me back to my Malibu estate, a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa overlooking the Pacific, the same ocean that had nearly killed me. As we pulled into the circular driveway, I saw that Jenna's car was parked in my spot. When we walked in, she was standing in the foyer, directing workers who were moving furniture. "What is this?" I asked. Jenna turned, and her smile was sweet poison. "Claire! I'm so glad you're home. I've been staying here to take care of things. I thought we could redecorate a bit. Make it feel fresh. New beginnings and all that." She was wearing one of my dresses. A Valentino I'd bought in Paris. "That's my dress," I said. "Oh, you don't mind, do you? We're sisters. We share." Her smile widened. "Derek thought I should stay in the main house while you recover. He's moved to the guest cottage to give you space." I looked at Derek. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I'll show you to your room," Jenna said brightly. "My room? This is my house." "Of course it is, sweetie. But Dr. Brennan suggested you stay in the downstairs guest suite for now. All on one level, easier while you're still weak. Come on." She led me through my own house like I was a visitor. The downstairs guest suite was nice but small, one room with an attached bathroom. It faced the back garden instead of the ocean. "I'll let you rest," Jenna said. "Dinner's at 7. Derek's cooking. Isn't he wonderful?" After she left, I tried to access my phone. It was dead. I plugged it in and tried to turn it on. Password had been changed. I tried my laptop. Same thing. I went to my purse for my credit cards. They were gone. I checked my wallet. Empty except for my driver's license. I walked to the door and tried to leave. A man in a security uniform stood in the hallway. "Mrs. Patterson," he said politely. "I'm Bill Henderson. I've been assigned by the court to monitor your activities. Part of the temporary supervision order. Where are you headed?" "I'm going to my bedroom. My actual bedroom. I'm afraid Mrs. Jensen is using that room currently. Court order says you're to stay in this suite for now." Mrs. Jensen, he meant Jenna. My sister, who'd pushed me into the ocean, was sleeping in my bed. "I need my phone and my credit cards." "Mr. Patterson has those. Financial access is restricted pending the hearing. I can request them for you if you need to make an essential purchase." I was a prisoner in my own home. That night, I watched from my small suite's window as lights blazed in the main house. Music played, laughter drifted across the garden. Derek and Jenna were having a party. In my house, with my money, friends I'd known for years were there, business associates, people who'd sent sympathy flowers when my father died. Now they were celebrating with the people who'd tried to murder me. I saw Derek kiss Jenna on the patio. Not a familial kiss. A deep, passionate kiss. They didn't even care who saw anymore. I sat in the dark and pulled out the one thing they hadn't found, my father's journal. I'd discovered it weeks ago, hidden behind a loose stone in the garden fireplace of this guest cottage. Dad must have kept it here during his visits. In his neat handwriting, he'd written about his concerns. About Derek's expensive habits. About money disappearing from accounts Derek had access to. About Jenna's jealousy and resentment. About his plan to change his will before the end of the year, to put stricter controls on my inheritance. To cut Jenna's trust fund down after she'd blown through it. He died 3 months before he planned to update everything. Heart attack, the doctors said. Sudden and unexpected. He was only 67, in good health. But now I wondered, had they killed him too? Had they poisoned him somehow, made it look natural? If they had, they'd gotten away with it. And now they were going to get away with this. Unless I found a way to stop them. I had 7 days before the conservatorship hearing. 7 days to build a case. Find evidence. Prove I was sane and they were criminals. 7 days with no money, no freedom of movement, and a court-appointed monitor watching my every move. On day 2 of my imprisonment in the guest suite, I requested to see Martin Greenberg. Bill Henderson, my guard, made the call. Martin arrived 3 hours later. I need a different lawyer, I told Martin the moment we were alone in the suite's small sitting room. You represent Derek's interests, not mine. Martin frowned. Claire, I represent the conservatorship, which is in your best interest. Then I'm hiring my own attorney, Patricia Walsh. Martin's frown deepened. Patricia Walsh? She's a family law attorney. This is a conservatorship matter. She also handles mental health law. I looked her up before they took my phone. I want to hire her. Claire, you don't have access to funds right now. How would you pay her retainer? I'll find a way. To his credit, Martin didn't fight me. Maybe some part of him felt guilty. He agreed to contact Patricia Walsh on my behalf. Patricia Walsh arrived the next morning. She was 45, sharp-eyed, with short dark hair, and a no-nonsense demeanor that I immediately appreciated. She didn't treat me like I was fragile or crazy. Mrs. Patterson, she said, sitting across from me. Martin explained the situation. I'm going to be honest with you. This case looks bad. Very bad. But I've seen worse, and I don't take cases I can't win. So you believe me? I believe the facts are suspicious. Your sister and husband reported you missing 3 hours after you went overboard? That's a long time. The edited video footage? Security camera systems can be manipulated. Your sudden psychiatric crisis after inheriting billions? Classic financial abuse pattern. She pulled out a notepad. But believing you and proving it in court are 2 different things. We have 1 week. Tell me everything. I told her about the wedding video, about my father's journal, about his planned will change, about my suspicions that his death wasn't natural. Patricia took notes, asked sharp questions, didn't react emotionally. When I finished, she sat back. Here's what we're up against, she said. Derek and Jenna have had months to prepare. They have psychiatric evaluations from doctors they've paid off. They have character witnesses they've manipulated. They have financial records showing purchases you allegedly made that demonstrate erratic behavior. They have that video from the yacht. Allegedly made? I didn't make any erratic purchases. No, but Derek did using your accounts. I did some preliminary digging. In the past 6 months, your accounts show purchases of luxury cars you don't own, donations to causes you've never heard of, online gambling losses. All of it building a picture of someone spiraling. My stomach dropped. He's been stealing for months and making it look like I'm unstable. Exactly. It's sophisticated financial fraud. But proving it in 1 week? Patricia shook her head. We need more. I'll start immediately. I have investigators I trust. But Claire, I need you to pay my retainer. $50,000. I don't have access to anything. Find a way, borrow from a friend. Someone Derek hasn't gotten to yet. I thought about it. Most of my friends had been at that party. But there was one person. Thomas Brighton had been my father's business partner for 30 years. He'd known me since I was a child. Surely he would help. Thomas Brighton, I said. I'll call him. Patricia's expression changed. Claire, I'm sorry. Thomas Brighton died 2 months ago. I assumed you knew. The world tilted. What? No. No, he can't be dead. He's only 60. He was healthy. Heart attack. I remember because his firm handled some of the estate issues, it was very sudden. Just like my father's. Patricia saw my face. You think they killed him too? He would have questioned everything after my father died. He would have noticed the discrepancies. He would have protected me. My voice was shaking. They killed him, just like they killed my dad. We can't prove that without evidence. Toxicology, witnesses, something concrete. Patricia stood. I'll do what I can. But Claire, prepare yourself. This hearing might not go your way. She was right. I spent the next 4 days in that guest suite, watching Derek and Jenna live my life. Bill Henderson reported my every movement. When I tried to take a walk on the beach, I was stopped. When I tried to access my father's study, I was redirected. I was a ghost in my own home. Patricia worked around the clock. She found Captain Roy Hutchins, the fisherman who'd rescued me. He was willing to testify. She found medical records showing I had no history of mental illness, no history of depression before my father's death. She even found a digital forensics expert willing to examine the yacht video. But Derek's legal team was bigger, more expensive, and they'd had months to prepare. The hearing was held on a Tuesday morning at the Los Angeles County Superior Court, Judge Margaret Hartwell presiding. She was in her 50s, stern-faced, with a reputation for being tough but fair. Derek's legal team was led by Theodore Cross, one of the most expensive attorneys in California. His team took up 3 tables. Patricia sat alone with me at ours. The proceedings started with Derek's side presenting their case. It was devastating. Dr. Brennan testified first, describing my suicide attempt and paranoid delusions. Then came Dr. Sarah Mendez, the therapist I'd never seen, testifying about sessions I'd never attended. Patricia objected, demanded proof, but Dr. Mendez produced appointment cards, notes, even recordings of phone sessions. The voice sounded like me, but wasn't. Deep fake technology, I realized. They'd faked entire therapy sessions. Then came the character witnesses. Friends who testified that I'd been acting strangely, withdrawn, erratic. Business associates who said I'd made poor decisions, spoken about wanting to disappear. Every one of them had been manipulated by Derek and Jenna. Fed stories, convinced I was unstable. Then came the financial records. Theodore Cross presented bank statements showing wildly erratic behavior. $100,000 purchases of cars that were immediately sold at a loss. Donations to bizarre causes. Online gambling, day trading with massive losses. Your Honor, Cross said, his voice smooth and practiced. Mrs. Patterson has lost over $20 million in 6 months through impulsive, reckless decisions. Without intervention, she will squander her entire inheritance. Patricia objected. Those transactions were made by Mr. Patterson using power of attorney. We can prove it. Mr. Patterson was attempting to protect assets his wife was destroying, Cross countered. He was doing damage control. Then came Jenna's testimony. My sister walked to the stand wearing a conservative black dress, pearls at her throat, her hair pulled back. She looked elegant and concerned. Jenna, please describe your sister's behavior in the months before the incident, Cross said. Jenna dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Claire has changed so much since Dad died. She started drinking more. She'd call me in the middle of the night, paranoid, saying people were plotting against her. She accused me of wanting her money. She accused Derek of cheating. None of it was true, but she couldn't see reason. And the night on the yacht? Jenna's voice broke. We threw her a surprise birthday party. Just the 3 of us. Intimate and special. But Claire kept drinking. She said awful things. Then she climbed onto the railing. Derek and I tried to stop her, but she jumped. She looked right at me and said, "I'll make you all sorry." Then she jumped. Liar, I hissed. Judge Hartwell's gavel came down. Mrs. Patterson, control yourself. Patricia put a hand on my arm, warning me. Then came the video. The courtroom lights dimmed. On a large screen, footage from the yacht played. It showed me drinking champagne, again and again, stumbling slightly. My speech was slurred in the audio. I was saying things I didn't remember saying. Maybe everyone would be better off without me. What's the point of all this money? I can't do this anymore. Then it showed me walking to the railing. Derek and Jenna reached for me. I pushed their hands away. I climbed up onto the railing. I looked back at them, and in the video, my face was twisted with something that looked like rage or desperation. Then I jumped. You couldn't see Jenna push me because she didn't in this version. You could only see me jumping while they tried to save me. That's not what happened, I whispered. But it was too late. Everyone in the courtroom had seen it. Jenna was crying. Derek had his head in his hands. Patricia did her best. She called Captain Roy, who testified that I'd been coherent enough to say I'd been pushed. She called a digital forensics expert, who said the video showed signs of manipulation. She presented my father's journal, though Derek's team argued it was hearsay and circumstantial. But it wasn't enough. Judge Hartwell took a 30-minute recess to consider. When she returned, her face was grave. I've reviewed all the evidence presented, she said. This is a difficult case. Mrs. Patterson, I don't take these decisions lightly, but based on the preponderance of evidence, I find that you are currently unable to manage your financial affairs. I am granting temporary conservatorship to your husband, Derek Patterson, for a period of 6 months, at which time we will have a full hearing to determine if this arrangement should continue. The gavel came down. I couldn't breathe. The courtroom spun. Patricia was talking to me, but I couldn't hear her over the rushing in my ears. Derek walked over to our table. Claire, he said softly, so only I could hear, stop fighting this, accept it, make this easier on yourself. I looked up at him, at this man I'd loved for 8 years, this man who'd tried to drown me in the Pacific Ocean, and I saw nothing in his eyes but cold victory. This isn't over, I whispered. He smiled. Yes, it is. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare beyond anything I'd experienced. Derek now had complete legal control over my $2 billion, my properties, my entire life. He installed himself in the main house permanently. Jenna moved in too, no longer pretending this was temporary. They threw another party the night after the hearing. This one was bigger, a celebration of their victory. I watched from my suite as they toasted with my best champagne, danced to music played on my sound system, swam in my pool. Bill Henderson remained my constant shadow. I wasn't allowed to leave the property. My phone had been returned, but it was monitored. Every call, every text, reviewed. I could barely use the bathroom without asking permission. Patricia tried to appeal, but it took time. 6 months until the next hearing. And by then, Derek would have moved everything offshore, hidden it in accounts I could never find. One night, I sat in the dark guest suite and took stock. I had no money, no power, no freedom. My reputation was destroyed. My father's legacy was being stolen by the people who'd probably murdered him. My sister was sleeping in my bed. My husband was stealing my fortune. And I was completely, utterly trapped. I thought about my father, about what he would want me to do. He'd built his fortune through intelligence and determination. He'd taught me to never give up, never accept defeat. But I'd run out of options. Or so I thought. Patricia Walsh visited 3 days after the conservatorship ruling. Bill Henderson sat in on the meeting, as was now required for any of my conversations. I want to hire a private investigator, I told Patricia quietly. With what money? She asked, though her eyes told me she understood what I was really asking. I have some jewelry. Pieces my father gave me that are in a safety deposit box Derek doesn't know about. I can sell them. It wasn't entirely true, but Bill Henderson was listening, and I needed him to believe I had nothing left to fight with. What I really had was something far more valuable, the knowledge that my father, paranoid and brilliant as he was, had kept an emergency fund. $500,000 in bearer bonds, hidden behind a false panel in the guest cottage's bedroom closet. I'd found them the day after the hearing, carefully hidden in a box marked Old Tax Records 1995. Dad had left me a way to fight back. That night, after Bill Henderson went to his room in the staff quarters, I retrieved the bonds. They were old-fashioned, nearly obsolete, but still cashable at certain banks. Dad had kept them for exactly this kind of emergency. A way to access money if everything else was frozen. I cashed them out over 3 days at different banks, using my driver's license and claiming they were inheritance from a deceased relative. By the end of the week, I had $475,000 in cash, after fees and taxes. I contacted Patricia with a coded message she'd understand, but Bill wouldn't. She arranged a meeting. 2 days later, at a coffee shop in Santa Monica, I met Harold Dwight. He was 63, ex-FBI, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Patricia had vouched for him as the best private investigator in Southern California. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, shaking my hand, "Patricia tells me you have an interesting case." I told him everything. The yacht, the conservatorship, my father's death, Thomas Brighton's death, the edited video, the fake therapy records, the affair. Harold took notes, asked precise questions, showed no reaction. When I finished, he sat back. "This is ambitious, sophisticated, not their first time." "What do you mean?" "I mean this level of planning, the fake evidence, the psychological manipulation, the video editing. This takes practice. I'd bet money Derek Patterson has done this before." My stomach dropped. "Other women? I'll find out." Financial fraud, conservatorship scams, they usually have a pattern. If he's done this before, there will be a trail. Harold named his fee. $50,000 up front, $50,000 on completion, and I'll need 3 weeks minimum. I have 3 months before Derek can move major assets. After that, he'll bury everything offshore. Then I'll work fast. Over the next 2 weeks, Harold investigated while I played the obedient, defeated wife. I attended the therapy sessions Derek insisted on with Dr. Brennan. I took the medications they prescribed, though I palmed most of them. I smiled and nodded, and acted like I'd accepted my fate. Derek started to relax. He and Jenna became careless. Harold called me on a burner phone he'd given me. I found something. 3 other women in the last 12 years. Different states. Same pattern. Derek marries wealthy women, often with family money. Waits for a parent to die or a major inheritance. Then the woman has a mental health crisis. Conservatorship is granted. He drains the accounts. The woman ends up institutionalized or dead. Dead? How many died? 2. 1 in Nevada, 1 in Arizona. Both ruled accidental overdoses while in psychiatric care. 1 is still alive, institutionalized in Nevada. Her name is Margaret Stein. She's been in a facility for 8 years, completely cut off from her family. I felt sick. And Jenna? Jenna's been with him for at least 2 of these, possibly all 3. She plays the concerned sister or friend, gains trust, helps isolate the victim. So they're serial killers. Serial fraudsters who've killed to protect their scheme. I'm gathering evidence. Bank records. Testimony from the Nevada victim's family. Proof that the yacht video was edited by a company Derek hired. But I need more time. How much time? Another week, maybe 2. I didn't have 2 weeks. That night, I returned to the guest cottage to find it ransacked. Drawers pulled open, papers scattered. The false panel in the closet had been discovered, hanging open. My father's journal was gone. A note lay on my bed, written in Jenna's neat handwriting. "Stop digging or you'll have an accident too. We're watching, always watching." They knew I'd hired Harold. They knew I was investigating. And they were threatening to kill me again. I tried to call Harold on the burner phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Patricia. No answer. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. The next morning, Bill Henderson informed me I had visitors. 2 police officers. "Mrs. Patterson, we have a warrant to search your rooms." "For what?" "Illegal narcotics." My blood went cold. I don't have any drugs. But of course they found drugs. Hidden in my bathroom cabinet. Heroin. Cocaine. Enough to be charged with possession with intent to distribute. "Mrs. Patterson, you're under arrest." Derek appeared in the doorway as they handcuffed me. His face was a mask of shock and disappointment. "Claire, how could you? We've tried so hard to help you." "You planted those," I hissed. Officers, please be gentle with her. She's not well. She needs help, not jail. At the station, I was processed and placed in a cell. Patricia finally called me back 3 hours later. Claire, this is bad. Very bad. The drugs? The violation of your supervised release? Derek is filing paperwork to have you institutionalized permanently, not just conservatorship. Full commitment to a psychiatric facility. He planted the drugs. I believe you. But proving it? The drugs were hidden in your personal space. Your fingerprints are on the containers. Of course they are. They're containers from my bathroom. He transferred drugs into my own bottles. Without proof, it's your word against physical evidence. Patricia's voice was strained. The hearing is in 5 days. If the judge rules for institutionalization, you'll be locked in a facility indefinitely. You'll never get out. What about Harold? What about his investigation? There was a long pause. Claire, Harold's gone. What do you mean gone? His office is closed, his phone is disconnected, his apartment is empty, he's disappeared. No. They got to him. They threatened him or paid him off or killed him. I don't know, but without his evidence, without his testimony, we have nothing. I sat in that jail cell, in an orange jumpsuit, facing permanent institutionalization, and realized I'd lost. Derek and Jenna had won. They'd isolated me, destroyed my credibility, stolen my money, and now they were going to lock me away forever. I thought about my father, about his journal, now in their hands, about his fortune, now in their control, about his trust in me to protect his legacy. I'd failed him. I had 5 days until the hearing. 5 days until I was locked away forever. 5 days and I was trapped in a jail cell with no money, no allies, no hope. For the first time since that night in the ocean, I thought about giving up. On my 3rd day in county jail, a guard I'd never seen before approached my cell. She was in her 30s, African American, with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense bearing. Her name tag read Foster. Mrs. Patterson, she said quietly. Walk with me. I followed her down the corridor, confused. She led me to a supply closet, glanced around, then ushered me inside. What is this? I asked. My name is Sergeant Amy Foster. I'm not supposed to be talking to you, but I need you to know something. I believe you. Hope flared in my chest. Why? Because 15 years ago, my brother married a woman who seemed perfect. 2 years later, she had him declared incompetent, stole his inheritance, and left him institutionalized in a facility upstate. He died there 5 years ago, never got out, never got his life back. Amy's jaw tightened. When I saw your case, I recognized the pattern. I did some digging. Harold Dwight, I said, the private investigator. Do you know where he is? He's alive. He's in hiding. Your husband sent people after him, but Harold's ex-FBI. He knows how to disappear. Amy pulled out a phone. He asked me to arrange this call. You have 5 minutes. She handed me the phone and left the closet, standing guard outside. Claire? Harold's voice was rough. Jesus, I'm sorry. They came after me with everything. Threats, bribes. I had to ghost. But the evidence. Everything you found. I still have it, all of it. But it's bigger than we thought, Claire. Derek and Jenna aren't working alone. They're part of a network. A group of people who target wealthy individuals, usually women, and systematically steal their fortunes using conservatorships and institutionalization. My head spun. How many people? At least 15 in the network. Lawyers, doctors, judges, all on the take. Derek has hit at least 6 women that I can confirm. 2 dead, 3 institutionalized, 1 who got away but never went to the police because she was terrified. 6 women? Jenna's been with him for 4 of them, maybe more. She's not just his accomplice, she's his recruiting arm. She befriends the victims, gains their trust, feeds Derek information. Harold's voice hardened. But here's the thing. I found evidence that Jenna's planning to betray Derek. What? She's been moving money to different accounts. Accounts Derek doesn't know about. She's skimming from the top. My guess is she's planning to frame him for everything and take the entire fortune herself. I almost laughed. They're planning to betray each other? Derek doesn't know yet, but he will soon. And when he does, they're going to turn on each other like wolves. Harold paused. That's our opportunity. We need them to expose themselves, to confess. And I think I know how to make that happen. How? I'm in jail facing institutionalization in 2 days. We're going to get you out. Amy has a plan. It's risky as hell, but it's the only shot we've got. Amy came back into the closet. Time's up. Here's what's going to happen, Mrs. Patterson. Tomorrow, during your transport to the courthouse for a pre-hearing meeting, you're going to have a medical emergency. Severe allergic reaction. I'll be part of the transport team. A to 7-5 to 9. During the chaos, you're going to disappear. That's escape. I'll be a fugitive. You're about to be locked in a psychiatric prison for the rest of your life, Amy said bluntly. What do you have to lose? She was right. I had nothing left to lose. The next day, everything happened exactly as Amy described. During transport, I started seizing. The guards panicked. In the chaos of rushing me to the hospital, Amy created a diversion. A door was left unlocked. A uniform was left in a bathroom. By the time they realized I was gone, I'd changed clothes and walked out of the hospital's service entrance. Harold picked me up 3 blocks away in a nondescript sedan. You're officially a fugitive now. They've issued a warrant for your arrest. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. And then we're going to set the trap. He took me to a motel in Pasadena. The kind that took cash and didn't ask questions. For the next 24 hours, we planned. The key is getting Derek and Jenna to turn on each other, Harold explained. Right now, they're unified. But if we can break that unity, make them paranoid about each other, they'll start talking. And when they talk, they'll confess. We had the evidence Harold had gathered, bank records, testimony from victims' families, proof of the video editing, but we needed a confession on tape, something undeniable. Harold had a contact at the FBI, Agent Tom Sullivan, who'd been investigating conservatorship fraud. He was willing to help, but he needed probable cause. A confession would give him that. So how do we get them to confess? I asked. We plant evidence that each is betraying the other. Make Derek think Jenna's stealing from him. Make Jenna think Derek's going to kill her. Then we get you in front of them, wire you up, and let them incriminate themselves. They'll kill me the moment they see me. Not if they think you're their only way out of the trap. Not if they think you have evidence that can save them or destroy them. Harold pulled out a laptop. We start tomorrow. First, we make Derek find the hidden accounts. Over the next 12 hours, Harold orchestrated a symphony of manipulation. He used his FBI contacts to plant information where Derek would find it. Evidence of Jenna's hidden offshore accounts. Transfers of money Derek didn't authorize. Communications with lawyers about framing Derek for everything. Simultaneously, he planted evidence for Jenna. Emails from Derek to former partners asking about eliminating loose ends. Messages discussing life insurance policies. Searches for untraceable poisons. By evening, both of them were getting nervous. Harold's surveillance showed Derek confronting Jenna in my Malibu house. Voices were raised. Accusations were made. It's working, Harold said. They're fracturing. That night, I watched news coverage of my escape. Mentally unstable heiress escapes custody. Considered dangerous. If you see Claire Patterson, do not approach. My photo was everywhere. Derek gave an interview, tears in his eyes, begging me to turn myself in. Claire, please, let us help you. We love you. But I'd seen the footage of him and Jenna fighting. I knew the truth. The next morning, I did something insane. I went home. Harold drove me there just after dawn. I was wearing a wire. Agent Sullivan and his team were in a van 3 blocks away, listening. This was it, one chance. I walked up to the front door of my own house and rang the bell. Jenna answered. She saw me and went white. Claire, oh my God. Hi, Jenna. Can I come in? How did you? You escaped. The police are looking for you. I know, I need to talk to you and Derek. It's important. She should have slammed the door, should have called the police. But curiosity and fear kept her frozen. She let me in. Derek was in the living room. When he saw me, He stood up fast, his face cycling through emotions: shock, fear, anger, calculation. "Claire, Jesus Christ, what are you doing here?" "I came to make a deal," I said calmly. "A deal?" Derek's hand moved toward his phone. "Before you call anyone, you should know that I have evidence. Everything. Your previous victims, the money you've stolen, the network you work with, the offshore accounts." I looked at Jenna. "Including the ones Jenna has been hiding from you, Derek." Derek's eyes snapped to Jenna. "What is she talking about?" "I don't know. She's crazy, you know that." "Jenna's been stealing from you," I continued, "moving money to accounts in the Cayman Islands. She's got about $200 million in an account under a shell company called Meridian Holdings." I was guessing based on Harold's research, but the look on Jenna's face told me I was right. Derek turned to Jenna, his face darkening. "You've been stealing from me?" "No! She's lying. She's trying to turn us against each other." "And Derek's been planning to kill you, Jenna," I added. "Once the conservatorship is permanent, he's done it before. 2 of his previous partners ended up dead. Did you think you'd be different?" Now Jenna turned on Derek, fear in her eyes. "You said no one would get hurt. You promised." "Shut up," Derek hissed. But they were unraveling. All the paranoia we'd planted, all the seeds of distrust, were blooming. "Here's my deal," I said. "You both confess. Everything, every crime, every victim. You testify against the network. In exchange, I'll advocate for reduced sentences. You'll do time, but not life." Derek laughed, but it was strained. "Why would we do that? You're a fugitive. You have no credibility. Even if you have evidence, you can't use it. You're insane, remember? That's what every doctor, every judge, everyone says. Because if you don't, I go to the FBI with everything I have. And they already know about the Nevada victim, about Margaret Stein, about Thomas Brighton's murder." Derek's face went still. "We didn't kill Brighton. But you did kill my father, didn't you?" Jenna started crying. "I didn't want to. Derek said it was the only way. Your dad was going to change his will. We had to do it before he could." "Shut up!" Derek roared. "She's recording this. She has to be." "You're right," I said. "I am." Derek lunged for me, but the front door burst open. Agent Sullivan and 6 FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. "FBI, hands up. Now." Derek grabbed me, pulled me in front of him as a shield. His arm locked around my throat. I felt cold metal against my temple. A gun. He'd had a gun the whole time. "Back off or she dies," Derek screamed. "I'll do it. I'll kill her right now." Agent Sullivan raised his hands. "Derek, let her go. This is over. We have everything on tape. Jenna's confession, your threats. Let Claire go, and this ends peacefully." No, I'm leaving. I'm taking her with me. You're going to let me walk out of here or I blow her brains out." I could feel him shaking. Desperate. Cornered. This was the most dangerous moment. Jenna was on the floor, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. He made me do it. He said it would be easy. He said no one would get hurt." "You pushed me off that yacht," I said to her, my voice hoarse from Derek's chokehold. "You looked me in the eyes and pushed me. He made me. He said if I didn't, he'd leave me with nothing. I'm sorry." Derek pressed the gun harder against my head. "Everyone shut up. I'm leaving. Move." But then something happened I didn't expect. Jenna stood up. She walked toward us. "Jenna, stay back," Agent Sullivan warned. "Derek," Jenna said, her voice breaking. "Let her go, please. I know I helped you do terrible things. I know I'm going to prison. But I never wanted anyone to die. I never wanted murder. Let Claire go." "You stupid bitch," Derek snarled. "You were always the weak link, always too emotional. I should have gotten rid of you years ago." "You don't mean that," Jenna whispered. "Yes, I do. You were useful, but you're not even that good in bed." His voice was cruel, calculated to hurt. "You think I loved you? You were just another tool." Something broke in Jenna's eyes. Years of manipulation, of being used, of thinking she was special to him. All of it shattered in that moment. She rushed him. Derek turned the gun toward her and fired. The sound was deafening. Jenna stumbled back, blood blooming on her shoulder. Derek's grip on me loosened for just a second. I used every ounce of strength I had to break free, dropping and rolling away like my father had taught me in a self-defense class years ago. Derek swung the gun back toward me, but Agent Sullivan fired first. Derek went down, the gun clattering across the marble floor. The next few minutes were chaos. Paramedics rushed in for Jenna. Agents secured Derek, who was still alive, shot in the leg. I sat on the floor, shaking, while someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "You're safe now," Agent Sullivan said. "It's over. We got everything." Full confessions from both of them. Enough to bring down the entire network. Jenna was being loaded onto a stretcher. She looked at me as they wheeled her past. "I really am sorry, Claire. I loved you. Before all this. When we were kids. I really did." "I loved you too," I said quietly. "And you threw me in the ocean." She closed her eyes. They took her away. Derek was screaming about his rights, about lawyers, about how this was entrapment. No one was listening. I sat in my living room, in my house, finally free, and started to cry. Great, heaving sobs of relief and trauma and release. It was over. Finally, it was over. The next 3 weeks were a storm of legal proceedings, media coverage, and investigation. Agent Sullivan's team worked around the clock to dismantle the network Derek and Jenna had been part of. 15 people were arrested, including 2 judges, 4 attorneys, and 6 doctors. The conservatorship fraud ring had stolen an estimated $800 million from 32 victims over 20 years. I was cleared of all charges. The drugs had been planted, the evidence manufactured. My conservatorship was dissolved immediately. I regained full control of my fortune, my properties, and my life. But the damage was done. Derek and Jenna had stolen nearly $40 million before I escaped, money they'd already moved to offshore accounts. The Malibu house felt contaminated, every room holding memories of betrayal. I put it on the market the day I was released from FBI custody. Patricia Walsh and I worked to undo the legal mess. The fake therapy records, the psychiatric evaluations, the character assassination. We filed lawsuits against every doctor and lawyer who'd participated in the fraud. Some settled. Others would face criminal charges. The media coverage was intense. I went from mentally unstable heiress to brave survivor overnight. Interview requests poured in. Book deals were offered. A streaming service wanted to make a documentary. I declined everything. This wasn't entertainment. This was my life, my trauma, and I wasn't ready to package it for public consumption. Harold Dwight came out of hiding and received commendations from the FBI for his investigation. I hired him permanently as my head of security. Amy Foster, the jail guard who'd helped me escape, was offered a position managing my security operations. She accepted. 3 weeks after Derek and Jenna's arrest, I was finally allowed to visit them in federal detention. They were being held separately, both facing multiple charges: attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, and in my father's case, murder. The toxicology on my father's remains had been reviewed. They'd found traces of digoxin, a heart medication he didn't take. Slow poisoning over weeks, made to look like a heart attack. They'd killed him. My suspicions had been right. I started with Jenna. She was being held in the women's facility, awaiting trial. Her shoulder had healed from Derek's bullet, but she looked hollow, broken. We sat across from each other in a small visiting room, a guard watching from the corner. "Why did you come?" Jenna asked. Her voice was flat, empty. I needed to understand. We were sisters. I loved you. Dad loved you. We would have shared everything with you. Why wasn't that enough? Jenna's laugh was bitter. Shared. You would have shared. Like a gift. Like charity. You always had everything, Claire. The looks, the brains, Dad's approval, the money. I was just the pretty one. The one who was good for photos but not for the business. Do you know how that feels? So you tried to kill me? Derek said it would be easy. Said you'd have an accident and I'd inherit half of everything. That's all I wanted. Half. What I should have gotten from Dad in the first place. Tears ran down her face. But it wasn't easy, and it wasn't half. Derek kept moving money, hiding it from me. I realized he was going to take it all and leave me with nothing, just like Dad did. Dad left you $5 million, and left you $2 billion. Do you think that's fair? I'm his daughter too. I stared at her. So you killed him, our father. You poisoned him because you thought you deserved more money. Derek poisoned him. I just didn't stop it. Jenna's voice broke. I loved Dad. I never wanted him dead. But Derek said it was the only way. Said Dad was going to cut my trust fund to nothing. I had debts, Claire. Bad debts. I was disparity. You were always desperate for something. Attention, money, approval. But instead of working for it, you took the easy way. You betrayed everyone who loved you. Jenna looked up at me. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now. But I am sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. You pushed me off a yacht into the ocean and left me to die. How much farther could it go? She had no answer. I stood up. I came here to tell you something. I'm funding Margaret Stein's legal defense. The woman in Nevada that Derek had institutionalized 8 years ago. I'm helping her family get justice. And I've found 3 other victims from Derek's previous schemes. They're all filing charges against everyone involved. Jenna's face went white. That means charges in multiple states. Yes, you won't just face federal charges. You'll face murder charges in Arizona, fraud charges in Nevada, Colorado, and Oregon. Derek's lawyer told me you're looking at life without parole in at least 2 states. Claire, please. I'll testify against Derek. I'll tell them everything. I'll help you. You already did. You confessed everything while I was wearing a wire, remember? The FBI has all the testimony they need. I leaned forward. Here's my gift to you, Jenna. The truth. Every crime, every victim, every lie. It's all coming out. You're going to answer for all of it. And I'm going to make sure that every victim knows justice is being served. That's my gift, the truth. I left her crying in that visiting room. Derek was being held in a men's facility across town. He looked thinner, harder. The charm was gone, replaced by cold fury. When I sat down across from him, he didn't even pretend to be remorseful. Come to gloat? He asked. I came to tell you what's happening to your parents. His expression flickered. What? They're losing their house in Ohio, the one your dad worked 30 years to pay off. Turns out you took out a second mortgage on it last year and never made a payment. The bank is foreclosing. Derek's jaw tightened. That's none of your business. I made it my business. I bought the mortgage from the bank. I now own your parents' house. So you're going to take it from them? Make them homeless? Very noble, Claire. No. I'm letting them live there rent-free for the rest of their lives. I'm also setting up a fund to cover their expenses, medical bills, everything they need. Derek stared at me, confused. Why? Because they're innocent victims of your choices. They're good people who raised a monster. And they don't deserve to suffer because of what you did. They deserve better than you. You're helping my parents. Derek's voice was flat, trying to understand the angle. Yes. And here's the rest of your gift. Remember all that money you stole from me? Every penny of it is going to establish the Brighton Foundation, named after my father. It will help victims of financial fraud and domestic violence. It will fund legal aid for people fighting conservatorship abuse. It will support mental health advocacy. Derek's face twisted. You're using my money to help people? It was never your money. And yes, your entire legacy, everything you tried to build by destroying people, is going to help protect others from people like you. In 50 years, when someone looks up Derek Patterson, they won't find a clever con man. They'll find the name of the foundation that exists because of your failure. That's my gift to you. Your failure is going to help people for generations. You self-righteous bitch, Derek hissed. You think you're so noble. You're just another rich girl playing hero. No, I'm someone who survived you. And that's the worst thing that could happen to you, isn't it? I survived. I'm still here. I'm still rich. I'm still powerful. And you're in a cell facing life in prison. I stood up. Derek lunged forward, but Chains stopped him short. The guard moved in, but I waved him back. You wanted my life, I said quietly. You wanted my money, my house, my father's legacy. You tried to take it all. But here's what you don't understand. Money doesn't make someone powerful. Character does. Integrity does. My father taught me that. He built his fortune through hard work and intelligence, not by destroying people. Your father was a ruthless businessman who crushed competitors, Derek spat. In business. Not in life. And he knew the difference. I leaned forward. You'll spend the next 25 years minimum in prison, Derek. Maybe more. And every day you'll know that I'm out here, living my life, helping people, building something good from the ashes of what you tried to destroy. That's your real punishment. Not the cell. The knowledge that you failed completely. I walked out, leaving Derek shouting threats behind me. Outside the facility, Patricia Walsh was waiting. How do you feel? Lighter, I said honestly. Good, because we have work to do. The Brighton Foundation isn't going to run itself. We'd filed the paperwork a week ago. The foundation would start with an initial endowment of $100 million. Money recovered from Derek and Jenna's offshore accounts, plus a significant contribution from my own fortune. It would provide legal aid for victims of conservatorship fraud, fund mental health advocacy, support survivors of domestic violence, and offer grants to organizations fighting financial abuse. My father's legacy, properly honored at last. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room of the Brighton Foundation's headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city my father had loved. Harold Dwight stood beside me, reviewing security protocols. Amy Foster was coordinating with the team for our first major event, a gala fundraiser to support victims' advocacy groups. Derek and Jenna's trial had concluded 3 weeks ago. Both were convicted on all counts. Derek received life without parole in federal prison, plus consecutive sentences in 3 states for previous crimes. Jenna received 25 years federal, with additional state sentences to follow. She would be 70 before she was eligible for release. The network they'd been part of was dismantled completely. 15 convictions, 32 victims awarded restitution, 8 conservatorships overturned. Margaret Stein, the Nevada victim, was released from the facility where she'd been held for 8 years. She was slowly rebuilding her life with her family's support. I'd met with Margaret twice. She'd held my hands and cried, thanking me for not giving up, for fighting back, for exposing the people who'd stolen years of her life. We'd become friends, bonded by shared trauma and survival. The media coverage had been extensive. My face was everywhere for weeks, but I'd learned to control the narrative. I gave one interview to a respected journalist, telling my story on my terms. After that, I declined all requests and focused on the work. Patricia Walsh had become my chief operating officer for the foundation. She understood the legal landscape, knew how to navigate the complexities of victim advocacy, and shared my commitment to preventing others from suffering what I'd endured. Tonight was the foundation's official launch gala. 200 guests, including legislators, judges, advocates, and survivors. I'd fought against doing this kind of public event, but Patricia had convinced me it was necessary. Visibility meant funding. Funding meant help for more people. I was standing at the window, watching the sun set over Los Angeles, when Amy approached. Mrs. Patterson, guests are starting to arrive. Are you ready? I turned, smoothing down my dress. It was emerald green, elegant but not ostentatious. Professional but not cold. My father would have approved, as ready as I'll ever be. The gala was held in the foundation's event space. As I walked through the crowd, shaking hands and thanking donors, I thought about how far I'd come. 7 months ago, I was drowning in the Pacific Ocean, betrayed and broken. Now I was here, using my survival to help others. During the speeches, I took the stage. The room fell quiet. I'd prepared remarks, but standing there, looking at all these people who'd come to support the foundation, I set my notes aside. 7 months ago, my sister pushed me off a yacht and left me to die in the ocean, I began. My husband, the man I'd loved for 8 years, stood beside her and watched me drown. They wanted my money. They wanted my father's legacy. They wanted to erase me and take everything I was. The room was silent. Everyone knew the story, but hearing it directly from me was different. I survived. Against impossible odds, I survived. But 32 other people weren't so lucky. They were targeted by the same network, the same scheme. Some died. Some spent years locked away. All of them lost something precious: time, freedom, dignity, trust. I paused, gathering my thoughts. This foundation exists because I refuse to let my survival be the end of the story. It exists because those 32 victims deserve justice, support, and a voice. It exists because somewhere right now, someone else is being targeted. Someone's trust is being manipulated. Someone's fortune is being stolen, and they need to know they're not alone. The audience was rapt. I saw tears on some faces. Others nodded in understanding. My father, James Brighton, built his fortune through integrity and hard work. He taught me that wealth is a responsibility, not just a privilege. The people who tried to steal from me wanted to pervert that legacy, to turn it into something selfish and destructive. Instead, I'm using it the way my father would have wanted. To protect people, to fight injustice, to make something good from something terrible. I looked out at the crowd. The greatest gift you can give yourself after trauma is refusing to let it define your future. Derek and Jenna tried to destroy me, but they gave me something precious instead. Clarity about what matters. Not money, not power, but purpose, community, justice. My voice strengthened. They wanted to take everything from me. Instead, they showed me what I'm really made of. They showed me I'm stronger than I knew. They showed me that survival is only the first step. What you build after survival, that's what matters. The applause started small, then grew. People stood. The ovation lasted for 2 full minutes. When it finally quieted, I concluded, "This foundation is my gift to myself and to every victim of financial abuse, domestic violence, and conservatorship fraud. It's not revenge. It's not even justice, though we'll fight for that too. It's purpose. It's healing. It's refusing to let cruelty win." I smiled. Genuinely. For the first time in months. And that's the real gift. Not what I gave them, but what I refused to let them take from me. The gala was a success. We raised $3 million in one night. Partnerships were formed with legal aid organizations, mental health advocacy groups, and victims' rights associations. By the time the last guest left, I was exhausted but fulfilled. Harold drove me home. I'd bought a new place, a modern house in the Pacific Palisades, with views of the ocean. Some people thought it was strange that I'd chosen to live near the water that had nearly killed me, but I needed to reclaim it. To look at the Pacific and feel strength instead of fear. That night, I stood on my balcony, watching the moonlight reflect off the waves. Somewhere out there was the spot where they'd left me to die. But I'd swum out of that darkness. I'd survived. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret Stein. "Watched your speech online. You're amazing. Thank you for giving us a voice." I smiled and replied, "We give each other voices. That's how we heal." As I stood there, I thought about everything I'd learned. Money couldn't protect you from betrayal, but it could give you options to fight back. Trust was precious and should be given carefully. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who stood by you when blood relatives tried to destroy you. And survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about choosing what kind of person you'd be afterward. Derek and Jenna had tried to make me a victim. Instead, they'd made me a fighter. I thought about my father, about the journal he'd hidden for me, about his concerns and his love. He'd tried to protect me from beyond the grave, and in a way, he'd succeeded. His emergency fund had given me the tools to fight back. His lessons about integrity had given me the strength to keep fighting even when hope seemed lost. "I did it, Dad," I whispered to the night sky. "I protected your legacy. I'm making you proud." The ocean breeze was cool on my face. I took a deep breath and went inside. Tomorrow there was more work to do. More victims to help. More systems to change. More good to build from the ashes of betrayal. But tonight I could rest. Tonight, I could feel peace. I'd survive the sharks in the ocean and the ones in my own home. I'd come back stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. They'd tried to drown me, but instead, I'd learned to swim in deeper waters. And I wasn't drowning anymore. I was thriving. That's the gift I gave myself. A second chance at life, lived on my own terms, with purpose and integrity. Derek and Jenna had taken so much from me, but they couldn't take what mattered most. My ability to choose who I'd become after surviving them. I chose strength. I chose compassion. I chose purpose. And that made all the difference. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone you trusted betrayed you? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling right now. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about survival, resilience, and triumph over adversity. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can overcome betrayal and build something beautiful from the broken pieces. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, no matter what you're facing right now, you're stronger than you know. Your darkest moment doesn't define you. What you build after it, that's what matters. Stay strong, stay safe, and never let anyone take your power away.